Do I believe it'll bring peace or more war? It certainly won't bring peace.
No, this isn't going to bring peace, any more than us selling weapons to everybody across the globe.
No, I don't think it'll bring peace. I'm honestly terrified that that man is going to start another war.
It's sort of like the playground bullies who would sort of like posit like they were fighting all the time to prove that they were stronger than everyone else. There's inevitably always some other bully who wanted to prove they were the, king of the monkey bars.
Well, it depends. Is he spending it on Space Force? Because I'd rather him direct the money that way. At least he can't invade a country with Space Force.
Knowing someone like Trump, I feel like a lot of that money would go to something as stupid as that and highly unnecessary. I just think that would bring more division and probably more people scratching their heads.
I think it's going to bring more wars. I feel really strong that this man is bringing a lot of negative stuff to this country.
This isn't just his bill. The Democrats signed off on it as well as the Republicans. This was a bipartisan bill. This is a moneymaker for the industrial complex that supports the military. We've been at war steadily for 16, 18 years? Well, you got to replace all those weapons, those bombs, those rockets, those planes.
All these things are manufactured to sell to the taxpayer that we need a greater military to effectively kill women and children and innocent civilians in places that I will never visit.
Of course, you have to replace those troops too, but you don't have to pay for the health care for the troops that get damaged and collateral damage when we send them overseas.
I honestly don't think that military spending keeps us out of war. I think it actually exacerbates and gives more incentive to actually spend that and generally continue being an asshole to other countries like we are doing. And I'm not a big fan of it.
It's impossible to spend that money and call it, sort of a peace project. It's without a doubt stems from a place of fear and stems from a place of greed, and it's really unacceptable.
When you spend as much as the next 5 countries in the world, that's how much we spend on the military. That's absolutely absurd. That's absurd when we could be spending the money here on our people and taking care of the infrastructure, for God's sakes, which is falling apart. Think of how many jobs can be created taxing the wealthy. Ooh. And the corporations.
It's just wrong. It's not peace. It's not a move towards peace at all.
There should be very, very little money spent by corporations on politicians.
Corporations should not be allowed to give money to individual candidates. Who gives you money, there's usually strings attached.
What's important to me is that their acceptance of these donations not impact what they do going forward. Are they being swayed by these donations?
Just the motive behind candidates. I feel, monetary incentives make them do and say whatever their donors want.
I feel if they're taking money from the big corporations, they're in bed with the 1%. They're in bed with all these millionaires, billionaires.
There needs to be either an elimination or at least aggressive cap on the donations that corporations can provide to candidates.
Unlike Mitt Romney, I don't believe corporations are people, and I think Citizens United should be abolished.
There should be definite limits on how much they can spend. Citizens United should be way overturned, should have never have been put in place.
It's like, like the NASCAR logos, that would be so awesome if every candidate would just walk out and they'd have their sponsor logos and stuff on them, and then you'd know where the money was coming from.
This automatically puts me in the mindset that they have a mission and they are a puppet to their donors. So they're gonna do what their donors want them to do.
When candidates are taking cash in such exorbitant amounts, they're no longer speaking the will of their constituents, they're speaking the will of those donors, selling us out for the sake of their corporations.
Are you saying that you're gonna do this one good thing, and then when we elect you, you're like, ooh, well, actually they gave me $40 million, so
And if they can get a political person to carry out their deeds, then they win, and that is not in the interest of the people. That is in their own interest.
The nuance is, yes, I don't believe that any candidate should take corporate PAC money. However, PAC money that is from a nonprofit that is powered by the people, such as the Sunrise Movement, yes, I believe that is perfectly fine, because that Sunrise Movement is a movement, of grassroots funding, and it's a movement of people who want a Green New Deal. But to receive a donation from a super PAC or just a regular PAC from those of the Walton family or those of Jeff Bezos and his friends, no, not at all, because their interests are their interests. They're not the interests of the people. And that's the difference in between a nonprofit PAC and a corporate PAC.
Ultimately, I wish we could go to a publicly funded system where nobody was allowed to take money except from, individuals and a public funding system. I think that would be a much better situation.
Once they start taking corporate donations, it's a slippery slope, because then they start being purchased. Some people say that we have the best government money can buy. Well, it's true. We do.
I feel we should focus all of our money on renewable energy, because oil, it not only destroys the earth, it corrupts people.
We need to move away from our dependence on oil and move toward more renewable energy, because there's only a finite amount of oil in the earth.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, we're subsidizing the problem. And that's just crazy.
We should absolutely be looking and putting more focus on alternative energies versus our reliance on oil.
It's really mind-boggling that we're still asking this question and that we're still discussing this.
First and foremost, we really shouldn't subsidize a dying industry. And secondly, yes, we should, in every aspect of the idea, subsidize renewable energies and renewable products that do further enrich our environment.
I'm a huge fan of sustainable energy, and yes, I was really proud that Obama was starting to fund a lot of research in sustainable energy. It's shocking to me how far we've rolled things back since then.
First of all, I don't see the need to be paying oil companies any subsidies. But I do think that the government could be taking at least some of that money and investing it in small companies that are coming up with new products that deal with climate issues.
We cannot sustain the level that we use oil at. And it also takes oil to get it out of the earth. And the same with natural gas. So your energy return over energy invested is not very good, and that's a problem.
Even when I was a kid, I thought watching Dallas, these oil tycoons, that's what everyone wanted to be, and that oil was this positive thing. We were sold this narrative that clearly wasn't true.
Going back to the 70s, people were talking about the climate shift and how to deal with it, and our dependence upon foreign oil and oil products even here. Don't forget two things. That number one, after Carter, the oil companies bought up all the patent rights to solar energy. They bought up the patent rights to wind generation energy, and they kept it off the market. This is on them, and we're subsidizing this. Well, they're still doing it. They're still doing it, and it's not benefiting us, and it's certainly not going to be benefiting us in the next 30 years. It's only going to get worse.
And what I'm thinking about is how we subsidize the meat and dairy industries. What I hear all the time from people who want to eat healthier is that it's easier for them to feed their family on dollar meals at McDonald's versus actually going to make healthy salads for them. It's the same thing to me about subsidizing big oil versus sustainable materials.
They need to be talking about that more in media and in politics.
There is so much opportunity in wind and water and solar. There's just so many things we could be doing and should be doing. I don't see why we are so reliant on oil, and I just think it's unnecessary.
It's this kind of vicious cycle. It doesn't need to be that way. There's so many alternatives. And if we just continue to put more energy into those alternative sources, it would become abundantly clear that oil, which is already a finite source, isn't the miracle that we've been told it is.
We absolutely should be taking care of people, the planet, and trying to move forward in fixing all the ways that we fucked up already. I don't think it's the end. I really think that we can reverse things, but I see a lot of us are really feeling the weight of the helplessness.
And it's a major factor in why we invade other countries, like Iraq. So I feel if we were to invest all of our wealth or all of our money into renewable energy, this is something that's going to persist. This is what's more practical.
God forbid we should take away some of the money from the oil companies or from big agriculture. We got to subsidize them. Nonsense.
But it's not too late to change it. We should be pushing these subsidies in the right direction, for sure.